So a long time ago, about 2 months before the Super Bowl, I talked about some of my least favorite character tropes, mainly keying in on 3 archetypes: the pervy character, the overpowered side character, and the pathetic character. But since I'm a human with a lot of hate in his bones, in today's video, I'll be going through some more character tropes that really get that vein in my forehead bulging. But first, it's imperative that I say this now: I don't hate all of these tropes equally. My issues with the character can range from small issues to fundamental problems with the character archetype. With that being said, the first type of character I want to talk about is the pure-hearted character, and I'll admit, this one is a bit nitpicky. A pure-hearted character is a character who has a heart free of evil and malice. You'll usually see them being the nice and friendly character who makes the morally good decision. I feel like we've seen this type of character a lot in anime. A very simple example of someone with a pure heart is Goku. You never see Goku doing anything evil and will typically look to give his enemies second chances or forgiveness. And there's nothing wrong with that in theory. Depending on how the story is executed, you can see the cracks of this type of character start to appear very quickly. And my problems go a bit deeper than letting the villain go or giving forgiveness to the villain. For example, look at a character like Tanjiro. When Yutaru and Daki are about to die, they start arguing and spouting crazy things to each other. Tanjiro swoops in to tell them to stop arguing because they only have each other left, etc, etc. Although there's nothing wrong with being sentimental, at a certain point I start to feel like we're just being a bit unrealistic. Like an hour ago, Daki destroyed an entire block of houses and people, and you were the one who got angry at the fact that someone could do such a thing without regard for others' lives. But then at death's door, we're choosing to be sentimental to them. I can understand that it's easier to have those feelings at a moment like death, but I don't know, it just feels a bit off when it's executed in such a manner. This also just might be me having a bigger problem with Demon Slayer as a whole. The demons we see murking a bunch of humans will probably have some sad backstories, but they just don't feel strong enough to give someone a reason to empathize with. And sometimes my arguments aren't worded the best, so let me say it like this: let's create some sort of spectrum for why some antagonists are evil. We'll have the villains in Naruto on one side and the villains in JJK as the other side. For Naruto villains, a lot of them have very thought out reasons for why they do what they do and constantly have monologues to their philosophy. Although their logic might be backwards like Madara and Pain, it's very apparent that they are the way they are because of the world that they came from. This makes it easier for someone to attempt to empathize with someone like that despite their actions being so bad. Now let's look at JJK villains. A lot of the antagonists we see doing evil things are either just doing it just to do it or are fundamentally born from negative emotions, inherently making them evil. Sure, they'll have a monologue about why they do the things they do, but there isn't much reason to empathize with someone like Sukuna because a lot of the things he does are simply self-indulgent. Demons in Demon Slayer feel like they're trying to be more like Naruto villains but end up coming off as JJK antagonists. Like Daki and Yutaru are definitely not going to be in the good afterlife. So when I see characters trying to be sentimental to villains who are really not worthy of having that sentiment, I kind of scoff at those characters. And this kind of turned into me ranting about Demon Slayer, but the same thing applies to Goku when he tries to let someone like Frieza live to get a second chance. Frieza was literally the definition of pure evil, and Goku definitely recognized that aspect of him. Why on earth is he giving this man energy to live another day? I understand why pure-hearted characters are done in fiction, but I feel like the execution needs to be a bit better to make the character more believable. Next up is the garbage, waste of space, wasted animation, overpowered isekai MC. I really have an intense hatred for this type of character. Like, I feel a fire inside of me anytime I think about these characters. When you have an overpowered character in a shonen series, you're typically not going to give them the ability to do literally anything they want. But when it's an isekai, these mangakas just give them the ability to do anything. I've already talked about that bum of a clout chaser Anos Voldigold and how he can just do anything he wants really. I think this comment sums it up perfectly. This man Anos is literally just doing kindergarten play fighting. Every fight he's in, he can just be like, nuh-uh, and just murk you. It was cool the first time, Anos, but you've done the same thing for 2 seasons straight. And I'm just assuming that's what he's done because I'm not watching that show. Why should I? I know who's gonna win and what's gonna happen. How many times do you have to see to get the point? Why would you watch a battle series where the protagonist is so absurdly broken? It just becomes very uninteresting. There's a reason why being called an isekai MC is an insult. They tried to give my boy Yuta these allegations because it just seemed like he was too strong and it was getting boring. These isekai MCs also just be infesting these anime sites with their series. Look at this one, In Another World with My Smartphone. Like, look at this bit. Ooh, let me calm down. This guy is a god. Not joking, he's a god and can do all sorts of magic and other BS, and he has a smartphone and whatever. And that's another thing. They always use the magic route to allow these MCs some BS abilities. Like, they'll casually have some time spell that reverses everything, or perhaps an instant death spell that murks someone on contact. Then there'll be some demigod demon or demon demigod that makes them even stronger. Are we not exhausted of this yet? I'm really sorry if this is someone's favorite anime. You may have watched it when you were younger and I'm just slandering it like crazy. I'm also sorry that you haven't found something better than this series. At the very least, from my understanding, the story isn't fully battle focused, so you won't have a caveman plot of the MC just running through everyone. Long story short, all these guys are the same uninspired, bland character that would just be using the debate to say that they can beat Goku. I hate them. For the next character type, I want to talk about the gifted characters / prodigies. In a vacuum, these types of characters are typically fine. They demonstrate the potential to be really strong and are usually relatively young, making them more relatable to the younger audience. However, the discourse around these characters has got to be the most frustrating thing imaginable. The conversations around the gifted character revolve around two topics. Topic 1 is that the character is overrated by everyone and is just a potential man. Topic 2 is that the character is secretly the strongest thing imaginable and just needs to realize their potential. And spoiler alert, both sides are equally annoying. First off, the discussion about being a potential man can get dragged really quickly. There are some cases when the character is genuinely overrated and glorified for contributing very little to the story, but it gets to a point where people make false narratives about a character always losing when in reality their record isn't as bad as people say it is. You really can see how biased people are when you ask them questions about a character like Toshiro. Toshiro is one of my favorite characters in Bleach, so obviously I'm going to defend him, but objectively this guy don't even be getting crazy L's. He lost to Aizen twice, whoop-de-doo. Basically everyone lost to Aizen, but they'll use the losses to really drag his name through the mud when he ain't even lose that much in the series. Now I gotta hear how Toshiro is just a potential man when in reality he shouldn't even be considered in that realm. Then there's the other topic of discourse, actually overrating the character because of their potential. This is when the discourse becomes so short-sighted that people believe a character has done more and can do more than they are actually capable of. Characters like Shisui suffer from this. I've already gone to Shisui a lot on this channel, but let me give you the gist of what I've said already. Some people will talk about him like he's some god of the Naruto world and how his Koto and Matsukami is so broken and yada yada yada. And sidebar, a lot of the time a character doesn't get much screen time but demonstrates a strong ability, fans will tend to just run with the limited details of the ability and start theory crafting nonsense that is not possible in the slightest. It also doesn't help how a lot of these characters get written out of the story early, so we can't really put a cap on how strong certain characters could have been. Like Ace, he has all 3 types of haki, a good devil fruit, and was the son of the Pirate King, so he could have had the potential to be stronger than anyone, but he really didn't do much with all of those abilities. Brody was getting flashes of the pearly gates by Blackbeard's punch alone, so it's incredibly hard to talk about him from a strength perspective. Then I'd be crazy not to mention this guy, but Gohan is possibly the biggest perpetrator of having terrible conversations around him. There are many people that will slander him because they think he's a bum because he has the potential to be the strongest but doesn't really do anything with it. Then there are those who will glaze him relentlessly because the series said that he has the potential to be the strongest in the universe. He's become polarizing for all of the wrong reasons. In fact, all of these characters become extremely polarizing in their fan base. It's just tiring to see either glaze or hate for a character you enjoy. And before we get into the next type of character, if you're enjoying the video so far and you're new, you might as well subscribe. Anywho, on to the next type of character, which is one I think a lot of people will understand why they're in this video. That is the character who gets power creep. These types of characters are typically the most disrespected in a series, well, besides another archetype that I'll get into later. For those who don't know, power creep is a concept of characters in a series becoming stronger as the story progresses. This leaves characters who are not constantly within the main cast left behind in terms of power. These are the types of characters where you gotta separate the strength level from the actual character and just reminisce on the good times. This character archetype always hits different when I look at characters like Enel, Chad up until the 1000-Year Blood War, Piccolo before the superhero movie, etc. All of these guys were so cool when they were first introduced. Like Chad was the powerhouse that Ichigo infamously said he couldn't imagine losing. Just off of his initial episodes, I thought Chad would be a big player for the entire series, but then he fought Shinsui and lost. Then he didn't really do much in the Arankar arc. Then he became irrelevant for a bit and now he's just there. Same thing happened to a majority of the Z fighters in Dragon Ball Super. Shoot, even the Buu saga was really the start of the downfall for a lot of the Z fighters. The Earthlings like Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, and Chaozu got power crept so fast and now they're just spectators in most fights. The Tournament of Power was cool, but it doesn't compare to how much of a role these guys played in Dragon Ball. When I was younger, these guys always felt a bit irrelevant post Saiyan saga because I didn't even know about Dragon Ball. Piccolo might be the most egregious case of being power crept because he's such a good character in Dragon Ball and throughout most of Dragon Ball Z, and he was getting fairly good treatment up until the Buu saga where he was kind of just there to help out Goten and Trunks. And then Dragon Ball Super, he was just non-existent. Like seriously, what did he do in Dragon Ball Super before Superhero? I don't care how random the power-up was, but he needed Orange Piccolo so he could actually be relevant again. It physically pains me to see a character like Piccolo be plunged into irrelevance for so long. Then the villains who get power crept are a different type of pain. Enel was such a massive threat in Skypiea because of his fruit and observation haki, but then he got beat by a Luffy with no gears, so the threat that he once had is no longer there whatsoever. It's a very good thing that Oda does not leave a lot of his villains to dry out on the side of the road, so it's possible that he returns later in the story. I think Oda started to lock in after Crocodile because he started to realize he did his character dirty. Crocodile is one of my favorite One Piece villains because he just feels like the perfect balance of everything. He was one of the first characters to defeat Luffy easily and had some really good moments in Alabasta. Like when the elite guard tried to challenge him with a special water that killed them, he just sat there and let nature take its course. I can't put my finger finger on it, but I just love this moment so much. But then Luffy beat him, which is fine and all, until you realize how early in the story it is for Luffy to be the character on the caliber of Crocodile. A Logia user who's a warlord gets beat in the first major saga in the series. This was definitely a problem that Oda was smart for amending, because if Crocodile just got written out of the story past this point, then it would have easily been one of the biggest fumbles. And that's probably the best way to summarize a character who gets power crept: a fumble. They are characters with the actual potential to contribute more to the story, but are not able to keep up with the story's level of power.
How you say chat? Sundere? Marcus Sundere. Type shit.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
As you can tell, the next character we're talking about is an anime classic, a tsundere. To make it simple to understand, a tsundere is basically the personification of the Sour Patch commercials, where they're sour at first, but then they're sweet. The whole idea can be fine sometimes when it's just the character being a bit embarrassed at times, but it starts to become really annoying when the entire character's personality is just being angry all the time, and then once in a decade they give you a compliment. Like, that's not cute, that's annoying. Can you imagine dealing with someone like this in real life? Someone randomly yelling insults at you 1 second, then the next moment they're asking you to eat lunch with them. That's another thing. The sour side of some of these characters are literally just them hurling insults at people. Is this just not verbal abdominal use? Trust me, if you had a friend moving like this in real life, they're not gonna be your friend much longer. A tsundere flare can also just be very aggravating. Like, Vegeta has some of these tendencies when he doesn't want to fuse. Like, bro, just put on the earring and get to fighting. He also tries to act like Goku isn't his best friend and is just his rival. Like, alright bro, you got it. The last character I want to talk about is probably my least favorite one from a narrative perspective, and it has a similar premise as to why I don't like characters who get power crept. I do not like hype characters. What I mean by a hype character is a character who gets introduced to the story only to make another character look stronger, or to kind of artificially make a threat look even stronger. These hype characters always get really interesting abilities and backstories that probably should be explored a lot more, but instead they need to get written out immediately so the other character looks good. Stars and Stripes is a prime example of this. Her only job was to make Shigaraki look stronger. She's only there for like 2 episodes until she gets murked. It just makes you wonder why you even introduced the character in the first place if they'll just be thrown away a second later. It just rarely gives me a good viewer experience. I feel like the only time it was done fine was with Mecha Frieza and King Cold, because it introduced Trunks and presented the androids as an even bigger threat. But even then, Mecha Frieza was just useless, and King Cold probably could have been explored more as a character. If you don't give a solid reason as to why these characters just get folded immediately, then it just feels like a waste of a character to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and special thanks if you made it this far. Hope you enjoyed the video, and there are still other types of characters I want to talk about, so let me know if you want another part to this video. And also, since it's close to Thanksgiving for my American audience, make sure y'all express gratitude to your loved ones and those close to you. Honestly, even if you're not American, you should try to think about something you're grateful for. I'm grateful for all you guys who have supported me in any type of way and have followed me on this journey, and hopefully you continue to stick with me even through some of the bumps. With that being said, have a great day. Peace out.